RetroDaze.
Well, that smell of dried leaves and apples is in the air, which means October has arrived once again. Now, as we did last year, we're going to spend the entire month bringing you a host of retro Halloween topics every Saturday for your spooky enjoyment. We were so excited about the arrival of October that this, the first video of Halloween, is a mega double-sized episode jam-packed with more movies and television specials than you can shake a skull at.
These days, when I say Halloween movie marathon, what I really mean is October entertainment extravaganza. There are simply too many movies, television specials, sitcom episodes, and old commercials to jam into a single day. Over the years, my list has grown exponentially and has even spilled into September viewing in a mad dash to jam everything in before November comes knocking. Of course, for RetroDaze's Celebrating Yesteryear series, we're focusing primarily on the 70s, 80s, and 90s, which helps narrow down the choices while retaining plenty of nostalgic Halloween viewing to enjoy throughout the month. While I will, of course, provide plenty of Halloween-specific movies for our October marathon, I prefer to watch them closer to the 31st. So, for our first pick, I'm going with an old favorite that has nothing to do with Halloween, but has somehow become essential October viewing for me.
They're here.
Sweetie, remember last night? Do you remember when you woke up and you said they were here?
Uh-huh.
Well, who did you mean? Who's here?
TV people. I've never sensed anything like it.
Its form is revealed.
What is it?
Its focus is clear. And the games are over. Poltergeist.
There aren't any pumpkins or colored leaves in Poltergeist, but there's something so perfect about this movie for the season. Though most people think of this as a Spielberg movie, and certainly it has a lot of him in it as co-writer of the script, Tobe Hooper directed the film, and it shows. Despite being PG, the movie lands some serious scares and even a couple of good gross-out moments. And let's be honest here, this is one of those examples of a distinctly 80s era PG. Reportedly, this movie was even one of the factors in the creation of the PG-13 rating. I can't explain how this came to be an October movie for me, but I think if you give it a chance the week of Halloween, you'll find it may secure a permanent position in your annual marathon.
10 years ago, on the night of October 31st, a small Midwestern town fell victim to an escaped killer. Under the cover of darkness, he carried out the most horrifying mass murder on record. 16 people in cold blood. Ever since that night, no one has forgotten his name. And Halloween has never been the same. Now, Michael Myers has come home. He has returned for one more night of unholy terror. Michael!
He's here to kill that little girl and anybody who gets in his way.
Oh, God.
Who's gonna be next?
Halloween 4.
With the many branching timelines of Halloween, watching the movies can become a bit like a choose-your-own-adventure book. My personal preference is to save the first 3 for closer to Halloween night. I like part 4 in an early slot because I can watch through this particular part of the timeline, get a taste of those wonderful Halloween vibes, and still save the best for last. It's worth noting that this movie has a pitch-perfect scene in a drugstore filled with era-specific Halloween ephemera that on its own makes this movie a must-watch for the season. Listen, if you grew up in the 80s and didn't absolutely love Ernest P. Worrell as portrayed by Jim Varney, then I don't think we can be friends anymore. Did his shtick get a bit old after a while? Did we, as we went from children to teenagers, lose interest and maybe even find the character juvenile? Well, sure, probably. But as adults, we can see that our teenage selves were idiots. Jim Varney was nothing short of a comic genius, and the Scary Things episode of Hey Vern, It's Ernest is a perfect addition to any Halloween marathon. While it mostly focuses on generalized scary things, as the title suggests, we do get a couple solid Halloween skits in there as well. And don't you dare think that I don't watch Ernest Scared Stupid every single October without fail.
You sense something? Tell me what you know. I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew that hell would not have him.
Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers.
This is the continuation of the OG Halloween timeline, and the movie where things really start going wrong. For me, the first batch of movies from Halloween in 1978 straight through to Halloween 4 are all infinitely watchable. Part 5? Less so. Anyway, Halloween 5 is serviceable and mostly watchable, if only for Loomis's unhinged reactions toward Jamie throughout the film. I like the movie enough to add it to our marathon, but dislike it enough to want to get it out of the way early in October and save the classics for closer to Halloween night. It's worth noting here that any Halloween movies after Part 5 that you want to slot into your own marathon are totally justifiable. Certainly it makes sense to cap off this part of the timeline with Part 6, though the only others we'll feature on our list are the earlier installments. Growing up, some of the most pervasive types of horror movies around Halloween were the Universal monster movies. Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Invisible Man, and Dracula were chief among the holiday's mascots. I dare you to live through a full October without hearing or seeing some reference to these ghouls of yesteryear. While the classic Universal monster movies are outside our scope of 70s, 80s, and 90s, other depictions of these creatures are not. Hence, Fright Night, a classic of the horror genre that I find myself watching every October. Not only do we get a stellar movie, but we also get Roddy McDowall and Chris Sarandon in epic roles. A must-watch.
Welcome to the Tunnel of Terror. Ha ha ha! Please join us.
In a lot of ways, it was the Halloween television specials and sitcom episodes that really made it feel like spooky season. Of the 8 Halloween episodes Roseanne made for her sitcom, the first one, from season 2, is arguably the best of the bunch. The costumes, the haunted house, the jokes, everything is pitch perfect here. We are also introduced to the Connors tradition of pranks on Halloween, which runs through many of the other episodes. Truly a great series and incredible entry to any Halloween marathon. And while we don't have time to talk about every episode today, that doesn't mean you can't add the whole batch to your own marathon. After all, you do have the entire month. An unofficial goal of mine is to try and get at least one Halloween-themed movie per day of the marathon. Note, that doesn't mean it has to be a Halloween franchise movie. Of course, in this case, we do, yet again, have a Halloween movie on tap, Part 3 for Day 3. The best part about this edition is that it's a standalone movie, which means I don't have to worry about pairing it with any of the other movies from the franchise. No prior viewing required. Beautiful. Halloween 3 is, of course, pretty well known among horror fans these days, having gone from ugly stepsister of the franchise to a fan favorite. We all know the stories about the botched marketing, the night no one comes home, and the terrible critical reception. All you need to know now is the movie is a lot of fun, a bit campy, and very much required viewing during my marathon. Also, Tom Atkins.
Here's a superhero with the biggest pair of all.
You looking for me?
There she was, just walking down the street singing.
This Elvira is a
Slimy, slithering succubus. A concubine, a streetwalker, a tramp.
Yes, she's got it all. She's everything you've ever wanted in a movie. A woman and a casserole.
She was walking next to me singing.
The charge is witchcraft.
Elvira. As Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Yet again, I'm suggesting a movie that has absolutely no connection to Halloween and yet feels incredibly perfect for the season, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. I'd argue the mere presence of Elvira would turn any movie into a Halloween movie. I don't care if it's a Christmas flick. Elvira's in it? Yeah, Halloween movie. Maybe that's due to her appearance in seemingly every Halloween-themed commercial ever made, or those cardboard standees that would pop up in October showing Elvira promoting beer and soda. Or perhaps it's simply her profession as the 80s official horror host. Sorry, Joe Bob. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark feels like a slightly darker Pee Wee Herman movie with Elvira and sex jokes. Wait.
I barely touched them! I say we kill him. Yeah! I say we hang him, then we kill him. Yeah! I say we let him go. No! I say you let me have him first.
Anyway, this is another must-see around Halloween for me, and I hope you agree. The Real Ghostbusters episode, When Halloween Was Forever, is a fairly new addition to my personal viewing. And listen, I'm going to say something potentially controversial now. The Real Ghostbusters doesn't hold up for me. I'm willing to give it a pass for a Halloween episode, but sadly, I won't be rewatching the entire series anytime soon. There are some children's shows that are made for both kids and adults, and then there are the ones that are strictly for kids. This, for me at least, falls into the latter category. Still, this particular episode is fun, and I paired it with Halloween 3 purposely because they have a similar plot point circulating around the old ways of Halloween returning. My one gripe about this episode is the mispronunciation of Samhain as Samhain, a mistake that the villain of Halloween 3 does not make, though Dr. Loomis does. Otherwise, the pumpkin-headed character of the same name makes a fine addition to the expanded cast of ghosts in the animated series.
Tonight, on the CBS Saturday Night Movies, this gentleman saved this little girl's life, but they accused him of harming her.
We'll do this ourselves.
And he was tragically murdered. Now, one by one, the men of this town are dying. Who is his avenger? Is it the dead man's grief-stricken mother?
They killed my boy!
The little girl who loved him?
I know what you did to Baba.
Or could it be the Scarecrow? Dark Night of the Scarecrow, coming up next.
The made-for-TV movie Dark Night of the Scarecrow first aired October 24th, 1981 on CBS. I wonder if the audience knew what a perfect Halloween treat they were in for, because for a television movie, it really delivers. At its heart, the movie is a revenge flick masquerading as a mystery, who is the killer, with some great slasher elements throughout. I'll admit to being a little late to the party on this one. I've only watched it maybe 3 times in my life, with the first viewing being well over a decade ago. I'm not sure what took me so long to revisit the movie, but I'm glad I finally did. You're sure to recognize a lot of the cast in this one, with heavy hitters like Charles Durning, Lane Smith, and Larry Drake. Give it a shot, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
It's party time!
Rock and roll will never die. At least not this Halloween.
I've heard of raising spirits from the dead by incantations, right?
Yes.
I did that by playing the record backwards.
You're kidding.
Sammy Kerr. He's a rock and roll nightmare.
I am a big fan of yours. I've got all your records. Shut up!
Young Bay, and Bay is you.
This message is meant for me.
How can you listen to this stuff?
Shut it off! Shut it off!
What have you done to your stereo?
I wanted a new one.
Sammy Kerr. His fans won't let him die. He won't let them live.
You should be loyal to your hero. Make it turn on you.
Trick or treat.
Now, we're not talking about the newer movie Trick or Treat, which is a personal favorite of mine too, but the revenge flick gone wrong movie of 1986, Trick or Treat, with notable cameos Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne. We're plunked into the world of metalhead Eddie Weinbauer, who's being mercilessly bullied at school. He escapes into his music, especially the music of his idol, Sammy Kerr, for solace. I won't say much more about this one except that we get into a supernaturally charged revenge cycle leading to some fun mayhem. There are some undeniably corny moments in this movie, but as a whole, it's an incredible addition to any Halloween marathon, and one I'd put right up there in my top 10 of must-watches for the season.
Let's give voiceover John a quick break so we can, yep, you guessed it, like our video, subscribe to the channel, and activate that notification bell. By golly, I like the way you think.
Mr. Boogedy is a pretty corny movie that was actually filmed as a television pilot and then subsequently aired as a Disney Sunday movie episode with a 45-minute runtime. Now, I didn't see this until I was an adult, so that could be one of the reasons I tend not to reach for this short movie too often. Still, despite some minor annoyances, it makes for fun Halloween viewing. Plus, we have cast members like David Faustino and John Astin.
Will it be all right? Should I be afraid?
It's coming!
Looking for an old woman. She lives somewhere in the mountains hereabouts.
All she can do is take you straight to hell. You go home and you bury your boy.
Some folks say as how she's got powers.
Who are you?
Ed Harley.
What do you want, Ed Harley? Say it. You're looking for vengeance. Vengeance. Say it. There's an old graveyard way back deep in them woods. The thing you're looking for is in there.
It was an accident.
No, not like this, not like this.
It's gotta run its course. Now it begins. It begins.
Pumpkinhead isn't really a Halloween movie, but it's also not really not Halloween movie. The film takes place in what seems to be the dead of summer, but our main villain has, well, a pumpkin for a head. You do the math. Like Trick or Treat from the previous day's list, we again have one of these revenge gone wrong movies. Gone wrong because in both cases we have a protagonist that initially wants revenge upon their enemies, but has a change of heart far too late. In the case of Pumpkinhead, a senseless tragedy sends Ed Harley, played by Lance Henriksen, into the lair of a witch, seeking a curse to help him get revenge. The special effects by Stan Winston are top-notch, the acting is great, and there's a wonderfully creepy shot of the haunted pumpkin patch that I absolutely adore. Essential October viewing, Halloween movie or not.
A full moon. A spooky, deserted mansion. Halloween night.
All right, dudes! Anti-dusters! Let's party!
10 kids. All they want to do is raise a little hell. Now, as long as they live, they'll wonder what's gotten into them. Night of the Demons.
Blessed be the sinners, for the Day of Atonement is at hand.
Stop looking at me!
If this next pick is watched alongside Pumpkinhead, you'll have a solid 1988 doubleheader, and boy is it a doozy. Ever since I discovered Night of the Demons, I watched it every single October without fail. Is it a good movie? Objectively speaking, no. But is it a fun movie? Well, hell yes! On Halloween night, a group of teens gathers at a local abandoned funeral home called Hull House to have a party. After unwittingly summoning demons, hijinks ensue. Honestly, there really isn't much more to it than that, except for the perfunctory History of Hull House exposition. Highlights include the animated opening credits, yet another iconic role by Linnea Quigley, and Angela's dance, which is probably one of my favorite moments in the entire movie. Angela, played by Amelia Kincaid, is dressed up like Susie Sue and rocks some sick moves to Bauhaus's Stigmata Martyr as she's possessed by a demon. The dance scene is legitimately disturbing, and yet the juxtaposition against Sal's reactions always elicits a laugh. Garfield's Halloween Adventure. That's right, you knew it was coming. An absolute classic of Halloween television specials, Garfield's Halloween Adventure ranks right at the tippy top of my top 5. For those who are interested, my top 5 Halloween specials of all time in no particular order are as follows: Garfield's Halloween Adventure, It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, The Adventures of Pete and Pete Halloweeny, Winnie the Pooh, Boo to You Too, and The Simpsons Halloween Special, aka Treehouse of Horror 1. Honorable mention to Witches Night Out. No Halloween marathon would ever be complete without a viewing of Garfield's Halloween Adventure. I tend to fluctuate between thinking this one is the best Halloween special ever made versus Charlie Brown being the best. I still don't know for sure which I prefer, though I have to say there are many memorable moments from Garfield that I look forward to every year. The scene when the old man is discovered sitting in his chair by the fire, followed by the ghost pirates chasing Garfield and Odie, still manages to give me the chills all these years later. I vividly remember being scared out of my pants as a kid when those scenes played out. On the other side of the spectrum, it's not Halloween until I sing along with perhaps my favorite song from any holiday special ever made.
60 men all lost at sea, all of them drunk except for me. 'Twas I who had to face the storm with nothing in sight to keep me warm. Yo ho ho ho, over the raging sea we go. Yo ho ho ho, wherever the four winds blow. Hey!
You know who to call when you have ghosts. But who do you call when you have monsters?
We're the Monster Squad.
What's a squad? It's like Miami Vice, I think.
They're young and inexperienced.
Naughty virgins.
They're a bit disorganized.
Monsters are not real.
We don't know that, sir.
2,000-year-old dead guys do not get up and walk away by themselves.
But when strange things start happening in town...
There's a monster in my closet.
Whoa! Look at that big, scary monster!
What's happening? You wait until the werewolf.
Silver bullet?
They're the only ones ready to do battle.
Somebody's out there and is killing people. And if it's monsters, nobody's gonna do a thing about it but us.
I previously made a case for Universal Monsters being so closely tied to the Halloween season that even if a movie isn't set in October, it deserves to be part of my Halloween marathon. Such is the case, once again, with The Monster Squad. Surprisingly, I never saw this movie as a kid and only discovered it through the horror community in my early 30s. Even so, I've become a huge fan. There are a whole slew of things in The Monster Squad that probably would not fly today. I still can't quite believe what Dracula calls little Phoebe as he lifts her into the air by her chin.
Give me the amulet, you
Biscuit.
Still, it's so perfectly of its time that it's hard to be mad about any of it. We sort of just accept that this movie was somehow made for kids and no one thought to object. The Midnight Hour is another made-for-TV horror movie that aired for Halloween, yet when compared to The Dark Night of the Scarecrow, it's easy to see the quality on this one wasn't quite as high. That doesn't bother me in the least, though, because this is a fun, if not sometimes corny, Halloween party that I absolutely want to attend every year when October rolls around. There are some notable names here, including LeVar Burton and Dick Van Patten. Apparently, Macaulay Culkin makes an uncredited appearance, though somehow I've never spotted him. One of the major reasons this movie has made it onto my yearly marathon list is because of the existence of the entire broadcast premiere, complete with commercials, which you can find either on YouTube or the Internet Archive. The addition of commercials from the official broadcast adds an element of nostalgia that is otherwise hard to attain. Yes, It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown came out in the 60s. You can absolutely debate whether or not it belongs on a curated list of movies and television specials for a channel that generally focuses on the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But as always, I have my justifications. It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown was pervasive in the 80s. We all grew up with it on television every October. It's the quintessential Halloween special, challenged only by Garfield's Halloween Adventure. Normally, I enjoy watching them back to back on the same night, so if you're not all that keen on separating these bosom buddies, feel free to reunite them on the evening of your choosing. What can I say about this special that hasn't already been said? We all know it and most of us love it. Traditionally, I would watch this whatever night I carved my jack-o'-lantern, hopefully with a big bowl of roasted pumpkin seeds and a slice of pumpkin pie. If there is any single, no questions asked, must-watch movie for your October marathon, it's the original Halloween, released in 1978. The movie is so intricately tied to the holiday that it was an imperative addition. I mean, is it even really Halloween without hearing John Carpenter's classic score? Without seeing Laurie Strode walking the streets of Haddonfield? Without Michael Myers peeking from behind trees and hanging bedsheets? Without Loomis tracking Myers? Well, not for me at least. I'll admit this is an obvious pick, as will be the rest of this list, but I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel here. Forget deep cuts. For me, Halloween traditions are sacred, and John Carpenter's classic will forever be a Halloween night must-watch. Speaking of obvious, the second installment into the Halloween franchise gets mixed reviews at best, and I don't disagree. It doesn't live up to its predecessor. And yet, Halloween rolls so perfectly into Halloween 2 that I can't bear to separate these siblings. There are plenty of valid criticisms to Halloween 2, including Laurie being benched for most of the movie, the screen time dedicated to hospital scenes, and the lack of characterization for many of the new faces. What remains from the previous installment, however, is the atmosphere, effective score, and great kills. There are far worse entries in the series, and when paired with the first movie, Halloween 2 satisfies my Halloween night entertainment craving. We need at least one choice that we don't have to actively watch during the point of the night when all the little ghouls and goblins are knocking on your door screaming trick or treat. I've made this mistake many times over the years, starting one of my favorite flicks for Halloween just as trick-or-treating starts for the night. Then I'm pausing the movie over and over as I give out candy. What we need is something we can let play in the background while we take care of candy-craving kids. Something that we don't really mind missing a few minutes of here and there. Elvira's Halloween special from 1986 fits the bill perfectly, especially if you watch one of the versions on YouTube, complete with original commercial breaks. There are a couple different cuts of the special on YouTube, but the most complete one also features music videos along with Elvira's skits. I won't call this one a must-watch for the season, but I do think it plays an integral role during trick-or-treating time. Any of the various VHS Halloween mixtapes that are floating around the internet, sometimes digitally, sometimes for sale on physical VHS tapes, are perfect viewing for the same reason. Pop one in and let it play while you give out candy or mingle during a party.
Night of total terror. Night of the living dead. The dead who live on living flesh. The dead whose haunted souls hunt the living. The living whose bodies are the only food for these ungodly creatures. Night of the Living Dead.
I'm placing Night of the Living Dead on the end as bonus viewing. While falling outside our 70s, 80s, and 90s window, and also not being directly about Halloween, the movie has become tied to the holiday in other ways. Specifically, it's the de facto copyright-free movie to play in the background of other movies, most notably, of course, being featured in both Halloween and Halloween 2. I usually play Night of the Living Dead at the very end of the night when I'm in bed and falling asleep. I love the movie, but I've seen it a million times and don't mind passing out halfway through. For me, it's the perfect final taste of the holiday.
We've reached the end of our epic October-long Halloween entertainment marathon, and boy has this been fun. There are, of course, many movies and specials that didn't make it onto the list because even in this double-length episode, we simply didn't have the time. While this wasn't an all-encompassing list, it was, hopefully, some good inspiration to get you started on your very own October marathon. So tell me, what other movies and specials do you like to watch during the spooky season? I would love to hear about it down in the comments, and if you enjoy our content, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and maybe even activating that ubiquitous notification bell. It really does make a huge difference. Let's meet again next week to celebrate Yesteryear and Halloween right here on RetroDaze.
Clicky clacky.